Joe Morris to move the motion.
Thank you, thank you, Sir Roger. I beg to move that this House has considered increasing tourism in Northumberland. It's an honour to serve under your chairship, and I'm delighted to see so many other members in Westminster Hall who share my interest in both the opportunities and concerns for tourism in my part of the world. Also, I'd like to extend a huge thank you to organisations such as Visit Northumberland, the Vindolanda Charitable Trust, as well as Northumberland County Council, and many members of the public in my constituency for their valuable contributions ahead of the debate today. Before outlining the importance and the challenges of tourism for the region, I think it's necessary to acknowledge the deep history of my constituency. It's for this precise historic legacy that many tourists can, should, and indeed do visit. As I outlined in my maiden speech back in July, my constituency is named for the town of Hexham, a medieval town boasting Hexham Abbey that dates from the 12th century, to Hexham Old Jail that is, to my knowledge, the earliest purpose-built prison in England, the beautiful Seal Park that opened to the public in the 18th century, and the legacy of the Victorian era. But the constituency I represent is so much more than just the town of Hexham. In the north, we border Scotland, honouring the legacy of the borders between the Kingdom of Scotland and England during the 13th century. And in the south, we take in the Allen Valleys, which host some of the most stunning scenery in England. Near Barden Mill, visitors can find out more about my area's history from as far back as the 1st century at Vindolanda, the ruins of a Roman auxiliary fort, as well as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, Hadrian's Wall, which runs from the Honourable Member for Pembroke and Solway's constituency to the Honourable Member for Newcastle East and Wallsend's namesake constituency. We also can't remember Crudder Castle, that was built as a series of Norman castles after the 1066 conquest, and remains and was the only Northumberland castle to resist occupation by the Scots. It should be noted that while stars of the big screen recently walked the carpet at my fellow North East native Ridley Scott's latest premiere, headlines were stolen by the announcement that a 2,000-year-old knife handle depicting a gladiator had been found in the River Tyne and is to be displayed near it. It was found in Corbridge next year. Visitors to my constituency will find the Sill, the National Landscape Discovery Centre, a gateway into Northumberland National Park, home to the magnificent Kielder Forest, which truly captures the sheer beauty of the region, and was also the site of my first overnight trip with my school in Year 4. Yet for all that Hexham constituency boasts deep historic roots, the attraction and the allure for tourists should not be limited to our history. Visiting the region should be as much about the legacy of the past as it should be about the present, both with the accredited community spirit as well as the facilities of the region. From the regular Hexham Farmers Market to the Bluegrass Festival to the Ovington Goose Fair, the Northumberland County Show, and a flock of illuminated sheep that can be found at locations along Hadrian's Wall. The Hexham Lantern Parade, Hexham Spook Night, the Corbridge Christmas Tree Festival. The culture of my constituency is an attractive for tourists in and of itself. Now, it's not just limited to festivals and markets, Mr. Chair. Recognition should be given to the cuisine and the hospitality sector. For example, Restaurant Pine, the Feathers Inn at Headley-on-the-Hill, Bouchon and Hiem, just to name just a few. The local pubs also contribute to the culture of the community, from the reopening of the Sampson Inn as a community pub in Gilsland to the Tannery in Hexham, where I was first served a pint, to my local pub, the Crown in Humsoft and the Falcon in Prudhoe. Local pubs contribute immeasurably to the culture of the constituency. I also want to very briefly touch on some of the sports tourism available with what I'm told, despite not being a golfer, world-class golf courses found at Close House, Slady Hall and Matfin Hall. Close House being a favourite haunt of many people that I know, and I know it draws many visitors to the region, but it could draw many more. But surprisingly, as I'm sure the Minister and every member here knows today, despite the rich history and the beauty of our region, tourism in Northumberland and the North East still lags significantly behind other parts of the United Kingdom. The National Tourism Body has outlined that between Visit Britain outlined that between September 21 and October 2023, there were 860,000 domestic visits made to Northumberland per year. For international tourism, that was 49,000 visits to Northumberland and 459,000 to the North East. From a comparative perspective, London peaked at over 20 million visitors in 2023. And I can say from a personal perspective that I'd rather be in my constituency than in London on any given day of the week. But the North East remains at the bottom of the league tables on international tourist spending as well as domestic tourist spending. When you compare the spending in London compared to that in the North East, London receives 16.7 billion of international tourist spend with 20 million in 2023 for Northumberland. It's a stark difference. And I'd like to see the government bring forward, the government prioritise growing the proportion of overseas visitors to the region, particularly from Germany, France, Netherlands, the Nordic countries and the United States, who already have strong links with the region. It will provide a key opportunity to maximise the growth potential within Northumberland. We also have in my constituency Newcastle Airport, although I'm conscious with the Honourable Member for Cramlington and Killingworth here, I only have 2/3 of the runway in my constituency. We've had a few discussions around what constitutes constituency airspace. But it's vital that we work with the airport, support the jobs that it underpins to support international tourism in the region. And it's crucial that the identity, cultural environment of Northumberland is protected, maintaining proper infrastructure in place, and that we should increase and invest in tourism in my part of the world. Now, while increasing tourism is crucial for boosting the rural economy and increasing job opportunities, there are areas that require support to the expansion. Transport, roads and infrastructure must be supported and invested in to support and handle an influx of both domestic and international tourists. We regularly see long queues to visit Hadrian's Wall and along the A69 in my constituency, particularly during school holidays, where there are well-known waits to see those wonderful sites. And I'm sure the Minister will agree that when advocating for the increase of tourists, we must not fail to overlook the interest of local people who could be impacted by the influx of visitors. Local people who use roads for short journeys shouldn't have to experience travel delay due to the tourist influx. But investing in public services and improving the conditions of our roads will make a welcome investment both for locals and for tourists travelling to the region and result in a net benefit to our economy by growing it even further. We need to consider the interests of our local people and ensure there's a proper infrastructure in place to support increasing tourism and allowing visitors to experience the stunning hills, the deep history and the community culture of our region. I'm very proud that the new Labour government has already committed to improving public transport, to reducing delays and directing funding into improving the conditions of the roads, such as the £500 million investment in potholes outlined in the budget. Such attention and investment is a welcome decision following 14 years of austerity and neglect under the Conservatives. Now, to preserve the rich history of Hexham and Northumberland, we need to protect our heritage. Just this month, Historic England released its Heritage at Risk Register that outlined historic sites in England that are at risk of decay, damage and therefore threatening their survival. The Heritage at Risk Register revealed that there are 262 entries in the North East of the 4,891 total that are at risk of survival. In my constituency, there's a concerning number of sites under threat. This includes the Corbridge Roman site, multiple sections of Hadrian's Wall, the Church of St Cuthbert in Hayden Bridge, and the Castle in Kielder. Vindolanda is further threatened by the possible risk of climate change. Those Roman ruins preserved in waterlogged environments, but the threat of climate change could affect the chemical makeup of the soil and damage artefacts that are currently preserved in the ground. The work of Historic England, as well as organisations such as the Vindolanda Trust, to preserve our history is commendable. Through improving infrastructure, investing in the preservation of those historic buildings and their places, restricting climate change in collaboration with local and national organisations will boost the regional economy, generate more job opportunities and preserve Northumberland's rich history. I'm sure the Minister will agree that England's a country with a rich historical tapestry, as is the UK, but we can't overlook Northumberland's contribution to this. Through preservation and protection of central heritage sites, we can lead domestic and international tourism to flourish. But a central issue within rural regions that I outlined last week in the Rural Affairs debate is the skills shortage. Rural regions are used to being underinvested in and to seeing younger people leave due to an inability to find an appropriate job. This contributes to the migration of young people from rural areas in search of work, contributing to a skills shortage in the region and fundamentally affecting the tourist sector of Northumberland. Such shortage of skilled workers has a significant impact in the provision of services that can encourage both domestic and international tourism to the region. And Sonia Galloway from the Vindolanda Trust outlined one of the biggest challenges jeopardising Northumberland's tourism is that skills shortage and problems with recruiting people in the hospitality and tourism sector. Through investing in people to create inclusive employment opportunities and skills development, we can make sure that the tourist sector in my county flourishes. I'm proud of the Labour government's advancements in employment opportunities for the British workforce, through educational initiatives and reforms to apprenticeship schemes, granting young people the skills and opportunities to enter careers that align with their interests and benefit the British economy and our tourism sector more generally, as well as Skills England, the initiative that will drive growth across the country and support people to get better jobs when they enter the job market. I also want to plead that when we look at promoting UK tourism abroad, that we consider how we can promote Northumberland to that wider international audience through effective media marketing strategies, through content-first destination marketing strategies that showcase the experiences of our county. I know the Honourable Member for North Northumberland had planned to be here but couldn't, and I should just quickly pay tribute to the magnificent coastline in his constituency. But collaboration between Visit England and Visit Northumberland would provide a valuable opportunity to promote both domestic and international travel to the North East, further increasing funding for national tourism boards and expanding marketing outreach and visibility for the region. Now, the scenery of my constituency is no stranger to the homes of families across the UK and the world, with TV's Vera trekking across the region in a matter of minutes to solve a case. A number of series by Hexham's own Robson Green, where he shares his passion for the beauty of Northumberland, and on the big screen, famously in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, where Kevin Costner and Morgan Freeman walk along Hadrian's Wall by Sycamore Gap, an opportunity that's sadly been denied to future generations by an act of thoughtless vandalism. The continued depiction of Northumberland will continue to shine a light on one of our country's hidden gems, and I welcome any support that the Minister's Department is able to offer in order to achieve this. I also want to recognise and commend the incredible work that's already being accomplished regarding the expansion of the tourist sector in the North East. The piloting of the Destination Development Partnership, which saw a £2.25 million investment from DCMS over 3 years, was welcomed. Such a scheme has a positive impact in directing tourism towards the North East, catalysing our North East Mayor's 10-year plan to double the size of the regional visitor economy. I'd like to draw attention to the North East Mayor, my good friend Kim McGuinness, and her announcement in September to double North East tourists over the next 10 years, to double our visitor economy from 5.2 billion and to create more than 25,000 new jobs for locals. And those will be situated not just in Northumberland, they'll be situated in Newcastle upon Tyne, in areas across my constituency and those of many other friends from across the House. I support Kim's work and the North East Combined Authority in their commitment to encouraging tourist numbers, and believe that through collaboration and cooperation, Northumberland can attract domestic and international tourism that can symbiotically benefit both the local economy and create more job opportunities while providing an enriching, educative and relaxing holiday for visitors. Thank you.
The question is if this House has considered increasing tourism in Northumberland. Emma Foodie.
Thank you, Sir Roger. It's an honour to be able to serve under your esteemed chairpersonship. And I'd like to start by congratulating my honourable friend, the member for Hexham, for securing this debate. Tourism is a vital industry in Northumberland and it provides a huge number of livelihoods across our communities. But before we get into the matter at hand, I think it's really important to correct the record that whilst Robson Green was born in Hexham, he grew up in Dudley, which is in my constituency. Now we've got that matter out of the way. In Cramlington and Killingworth, my constituency, we're blessed to have access to some of the most beautiful parts of this country. Tourism is the largest share of the economy, bringing in over £1 billion per year and seeing over 10 million visitors each year. I know that many will go to places like Hadrian's Wall in my honourable friend, the member for Hexham's constituency, or perhaps to Bamburgh Castle in the member for Northumberland North's constituency of North Northumberland. But Cramlington and Killingworth in south-east Northumberland is the gateway for many into our great county and a destination in its own right. We boast some of the best coastline anywhere in the world in Seaton Sluice, and many will know it from detective drama Vera, where an extraordinary number of bodies happen to turn up. Thankfully for our tourism industry, that is more brilliant fiction than fact. But what we do find there are thousands of families, dog walkers, cyclists, surfers, and more from across the region and indeed the whole country enjoying what is a fantastic and well-regarded beach. Events such as Harbour Day are fantastic community events and draws for locals and tourists alike. But we have so much more to offer than the beach and the harbour. My honourable friend may have Michelin-starred restaurants, but he should know that in my constituency, there is the best fish and chips in all Northumberland. The world-famous Harbour View fish and chip shop. So good that on Good Friday each year, queues are so long that they have to provide live entertainment with musicians and even a magician recently entertaining customers in recent years. It's the opportunity to have fantastic food and also to overlook the harbour and the sea that attracts so many people to travel from far and wide to our beautiful county. And further inland, we have access to serene wooded walks through the countryside like Holywell Dean and the destinations of tourists from near and far to see some of the art in the South East Northumberland Art Trail. The Big Spoon in Cramlington, which represents the area as one of the UK's breadbaskets, and the eerie but magnificent nearby Capella statue, the Shroud, are again one of the many reasons that people travel to Northumberland. And we also have the benefit of the sensational Seaton Delaval Hall, a Grade 1 listed English Baroque country house, which contains all the most eccentric trappings of country life and is run by the National Trust. People travel to see the architecture and the renovations that have kept this hall alive for the public. There's also the famous story of the White Lady who fell in love with one of the Delaval heirs and can be seen waiting for her forbidden partner to return. And as I mentioned in my maiden speech in the House, it is also the iconic setting of Geordie Racer, a part of history in its own right. And also, how can we not mention the great land sculpture of the Lady of the North, or Northumberlandia? This sculpture of a woman into the ground is 400 metres long, 34 metres high. It's an artistic masterpiece that captures the beauty of the human form using the earth from Shotton Mine. There's also a regular market there, providing opportunities to support local business, and I can highly recommend the Sunday dinner at the nearby Snowy Owl. So much of our tourism industry is getting to experience beautiful places like Seaton Delaval Hall or Northumberlandia, but it's also about the people, the culture and the feeling of a place. Geordies are famous for being friendly and kind. It's the passion we have for our places and the people that keep them running every single day that makes people want to visit our county just as much as the beautiful places and sites do. We know that when people come to Northumberland, they leave feeling embraced by people in the North East that welcome them and want to share with them the beautiful sites. This is an industry that is reliant on people, and without the support that my friend, the Honourable member for Hexham, mentioned so valiantly in his remarks, we face a future where, despite our Geordie charm, it is just not possible for so many of our beautiful places to be enjoyed and protected for the next generation. Thank you.
Maxwell Goodson.
Thank you, Sir Roger. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I congratulate the Honourable Member for Hexham for securing this important debate. I'm fortunate enough to have enjoyed tourism in Northumberland very recently. I stayed in Long Framlington and in Hexham with my wife and daughter, where we visited Hadrian's Wall. During the few days, we also visited Lindisfarne, where we took home a bottle of spiced mead, and I can recommend this to members seeking ideas for an alternative Christmas tipple, which would be popular with Vikings and monks alike. And we enjoyed time at Bamburgh Castle, at Alnwick Castle and at Warkworth. And at Bamburgh, of course, we saw the exhibition of The Last Kingdom, which prompted us to start watching that series on Netflix. If there was a competition for UK castles, Northumberland would surely be the Premier League. Liberal Democrats believe that tourism is the lifeblood of the UK economy. The UK contains a rich tapestry of destinations beyond our capital cities, ranging from traditional bucket and spade resorts like Blackpool to creative hotspots like Brighton, rural retreats like the Lake District, and modern city attractions like Hull. But if our tourism industry is to flourish, more focus is needed, and we must all work, as the Minister alluded to in the previous debate, to rebalance tourism away from London. And that's why this debate today is so important. That would benefit not only Northumberland, but also my constituency, Cheltenham, which welcomed 2 million visitors in 2022, an influx which supports around 4% of local jobs. Many of those are found in Cheltenham's excellent hospitality sector, and that will be the case in any tourism destination, and most of those businesses will be SMEs. The previous government let small businesses down badly and took them for granted. When businesses needed certainty and stability during the recovery from the pandemic and the energy bills crisis, the chaotic approach of the previous government made things so much worse. Liberal Democrats have called for a complete overhaul of the unfair business rates system, replacing it with a commercial landowner levy based on the land value of commercial sites rather than their entire capital value, thereby stimulating investment and shifting the burden of taxation from tenants to landowners. That this new government is exploring changing the broken business rates system is positive, and we welcome that. But small and medium-sized businesses need action sooner rather than later. And that action is needed now, and it's much more urgent as a result of the decision to reduce the retail, hospitality and leisure business rates relief from 75% to 40%. I visited one publican on the weekend who told me that it felt at the moment that This government still doesn't quite understand properly how the hospitality sector works. And that she thought that the contribution of independents in particular in the hospitality sector needed to be better acknowledged. That was Emma, the landlady of the Hewlett Arms, and she told me that the combined impact of the budget alongside cost differentials between pubs and supermarkets in particular meant that her job was getting significantly harder. I'm sure that applies to many places in tourism destinations, including in Northumberland. Now, I'm certain that the new government has a vision for tourism, having heard about it in the previous debate. I cannot promise the Minister that I will agree on every single point, but I will always aim for the compassion, creativity and constructive approach of the monks at Lindisfarne rather than that of a Viking invader.
Minister, Sagi Bhatti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a great privilege to serve under your chairmanship. And as I make my debut as the Shadow Minister of DCMS, it's great that I'm now shadowing my friend from Rhondda and Ogmore once again, as I was in DCIT. And I hope we'll have a very constructive debate today and going forward. I want to thank the Honourable Member for Hexham for securing this debate. I thought it was a very illuminating speech around what his constituency offers in the way of tourism and across Northumberland, and we should all aspire to nurture the tourism industry in our constituencies, and I look forward to visiting his constituency in Northumberland in the near future. And we should all recognise the immense contribution of the tourism industry to our economy, constituencies and local communities. Tourism is a vital sector, contributing over £70 billion to the UK economy annually and employing over 1.6 million people directly, with millions more benefiting indirectly. Indeed, Sir Roger, brand Britain depends on a thriving tourism industry. The latest annual STEAM report on the economic impact of tourism shows that the Northumberland visitor economy has experienced strong year-on-year growth. In 2023, it recorded its highest ever gross value contribution of £1.262 billion, a 7.9% increase from 2022, with Northumberland welcoming over 10 million visitors. This demonstrates that Northumberland's tourism industry is continuing its post-COVID recovery, thanks in part to the support provided by the previous government's tourism recovery plan. And I put on record my thanks to the previous members who contributed to that, Guy Opperman and Anne-Marie Trevelyan, who I know are greatly missed on this side of the House. However, it is now to the new government to demonstrate how it plans to support the tourism sector in sustaining its post-COVID recovery. During the general election and throughout its time in power, we've seen no indication yet of a comprehensive long-term strategy. So can the Minister outline when the government will present a sector-wide support plan to help counties such as Northumberland and the businesses that rely so heavily on tourism? Many businesses in Northumberland are heavily dependent on seasonal tourism in particular, which poses significant challenges when it comes to retaining experienced staff and making long-term investment in their businesses. To truly support local economies like Northumberland, it's crucial that we shift towards a year-round tourism model that provides the stability and growth opportunities that our businesses need. Can the Minister confirm whether the government's tourism plan will consider specific support for businesses to operate year-round, helping them to overcome the seasonal challenges that they face? The increase in national insurance contributions for businesses by the Chancellor in the last budget will have a profound impact on the hospitality sector, which is vital for the success of tourism-dependent businesses. Indeed, we are continuously hearing this, as noted by many industry leaders, including UK Hospitality, that this could actually force many small tourism-related businesses, indeed those independent ones that have previously been mentioned, to close, and reducing employee hours or even scaling back their expansion plans. Tourism businesses, including hotels, restaurants and attractions, rely on part-time and seasonal workers to meet demand during peak times. These changes in NICs may make it more difficult for these businesses to retain staff or to take on new staff, limiting their capacity and ability to make profit. This is especially concerning for Northumberland, where tourism quite clearly contributes to the local economy, but also plays a key role in sustaining small businesses and preserving local jobs. Given the ongoing recovery of the tourism sector following the pandemic, these additional financial challenges may well threaten to undo well-needed and well-achieved progress, particularly for small businesses struggling with already thin margins. Therefore, it is essential that the government considers how these new cost pressures will affect tourism and hospitality businesses and works to provide support to help navigate these challenges in this sector successfully. To unlock Northumberland's full tourism potential, we must prioritise investment in key supply-side areas, such as transport infrastructure, as has quite rightly been pointed out by the member from Hexham. Improved connectivity, whether by road or rail, is vital for attracting both domestic and international visitors. Enhancing access to Northumberland's iconic sites, from Hadrian's Wall to Alnwick Castle, will enable more people to experience the country's rich cultural and historical heritage. In addition, strengthening digital infrastructure is crucial. Many rural areas in Northumberland suffer from limited broadband, which not only affect local businesses, but also tourist experience. So will the Minister clarify the Government's commitment to improve Northern Rail and invest in digital infrastructure as part of its tourism strategy going forward? In closing, Sir Roger, Northumberland's tourism industry has demonstrated exceptional resilience in its recovery from the pandemic. However, the Government's recent changes to national insurance contributions could push small tourism and hospitality businesses to the brink. It is crucial that the Government provides the necessary support to the tourism sector, particularly in sectors like in counties like Northumberland, to help them absorb these additional financial pressures and work towards returning to pre-pandemic levels. I look forward to hearing the Minister's plans for the future of tourism in the UK and in Northumberland, and for the communities that depend on this industry to thrive.
Minister.
Roger, I still welcome you to the chair. It's good to welcome my honourable friend. He's actually written down, he's named in my documents from the department as Joe Hexham. So he's obviously completely impacted. I mean, that's probably how he's going to be presenting himself at the next general election as well, I should think, unless boundaries change in some bizarre way that is unhelpful. But it's really good to see so many new MPs wanting to talk about tourism and the visitor economy, because it is so important to so many parts of the country. As part of the creative industries, I think it's really important that we are saying, as a government, this is part of our industrial future. And he was quite right. He said something sort of in passing, which is that it's not just about the legacy of the past, because he listed some of the things in Northumberland which, from our historic past, which are really important. It's also about what we do today. And one of the things I think we need to change a bit about our whole tourism strategy as a country is there's a danger that international visitors from around the world think, well, the United Kingdom never really changes. It's always got that Parliament building. It's always got castles and the monarchy and things like that. You can go next year or the year after or the year after that. But actually what we want people to think is, no, now is the time to come to the United Kingdom. We're not going to put it off. We're going to come now. Because if they come now, they might then come again next year because they want to see a different part of the United Kingdom. And if I had a word of caution, he asked a specific thing, which was, he said, wouldn't it be a good idea if when we, the UK, are selling our tourism abroad to international markets, wouldn't it be a good idea if we were to specifically mention Northumberland? And I get it, because I'm a Welsh MP. I've often said, wouldn't it be good if we started mentioning Wales a bit more in our tourism marketing around the world? The question is, does it work? And I raise that because this is an anecdotal story, I'm afraid, but it is true nonetheless, that when Charlotte Church was invited to, obviously young Welsh singer, was at the time she was much younger, she was asked to go and sing for, I think it was George Bush in the White House. And she sang very beautifully, and afterwards George Bush came up to us, introduced to her, and he said, where are you from? And she said, Wales. And he said, what state is that in? To which she said, terrible. So there was a complete meeting of minds at this point. And this is it's a really important point about our tourism strategy. I completely agree with him that we need to... It's embarrassing that so many international visitors only conceive of a visit to the UK as being about visiting London, or, as I said in the other debate, perhaps Bath as a day visit, or Oxford and Cambridge as a day visit, and then maybe Edinburgh. But actually there's far, far more to see in the United Kingdom. But the question is, how do we best effect that change? Now, I think there are several things that we may be able to do that may mean more of those people do go to... He gave the figures perfectly. There's no point in me rehearsing them. The difference in numbers of people who go to the North East and go to London, and the difference in spend in London and the North East. I do want to change that, But I think that this is going to be a 5- and a 10-year strategy, which I'm very hopeful that we will be able to publish over the coming months. And I'll be very interested to talk to people from different parts of the country about making sure that we put a strategy in place that will genuinely work. He also talked about the difficulty of local people can't be shunted out by the tourist influx. And this is why one of the things that I'm very keen to work on more is this question of short-term lets. Because if you have an area, in particular on the coastline, this often happens, where there are large numbers of short-term lets, which are all full for 2 or 3 months, and then they're completely empty during the rest of the year, that doesn't seem like a win for the local community. So that's why, building on what the previous government did with its legislation on short-term lets, we hope to be launching a consultation fairly soon on how we can develop not just a register of short-term lets, so that at least we know what's out there, but how we might be able to use that register to better effect. As I say, to try and get the benefits of tourism and not just visitors coming during the day but staying overnight without the downsides that sometimes can come with that. Now, several members mentioned various particular places in Northumberland, and I think Vera got a look in several times, absolutely inevitable. I mean, I don't know what Northumberland's going to do if Vera ever stops. And Brenda, I mean, you know, she's a wonderful actress, but I don't know whether she's got another 50 years in her. Actually, my favourite place, it was mentioned by the Honourable Member for Cheltenham, is Lindisfarne. I have a little painting of Lindisfarne in our downstairs toilet at home in Wales, and it is a place of phenomenal beauty, extraordinary history. It's extremely well run. Thousands and thousands of people visit every year. I've swum in the sea at Cullercoats, which in the winter too, which is quite an ambitious thing. Bamburgh Castle has been referred to, Alnwick, which, and in fact, I think it's right to say that Northumberland has more castles than any other county in England. Wales might be everywhere else on castle front, but then that's Edward I for you. But certainly, and I think Alnwick Castle is the second largest castle in England, or certainly the second largest number of rooms, still the home of the Northumberlands, an extraordinary place to visit. But people didn't mention actually tourism for music, and the North East has a phenomenal tradition in this. Sam Fender, I know, was on in Newcastle when Pink was on in Gateshead. I know because I went to Pink, and that was a phenomenal concert. But the whole of the city, well, the whole of the region, I think, was alive. Every single hotel room in the whole area was taken. And I know that people are wondering about whether it's a good idea to have 2 massive concerts at the same time, and whether, you know, how you manage that to best effect, whether that's really good for the local economy, or whether it would be better to spread those kind of things out. And obviously, members have referred to other places in the constituency. The Honourable Member for Cramlington and Killingworth referred to the best fish and chips. I've been in many debates in my years in Parliament, and I think I must have heard nearly every MP say that the best fish and chips are from such and such a place in their constituency. I warn her against doing this in the future, because you end up eating an awful lot of fish and chips through this process. I'm sure her frame can take it, but I would just say to her that the thing that makes a good fish and chip shop is actually the range. And the best fish and chip shop equipment is provided by Preston and Thomas, who are no longer functioning in Cardiff, but nonetheless, the best ranges. I know because my father's best man was either Preston or Thomas, I can't remember which. Now, this brings me to the issue of destination development partnership pilot. So up in the North East, one of the key things, and I saw this when I visited not long ago, is there's a real determination to seize this, not just in individual constituencies or in individual local authority areas, but across the whole region. And I really praise Kim McGuinness. She's absolutely determined that the numbers are going to change. And a key part of that is trying to bring in a centre. Let's hope that it might become a national centre of excellence for hospitality and tourism, based in Newcastle, but working across the whole of the region. It would be good to get additional investment into that, because one of the things that has often worried me, and it goes to a point that was made by the member speaking for the opposition for Meriden and Solihull East earlier, which is about if you go to many other countries in the world, they are so proud of tourism that they don't think of a job in the hospitality industry as something you do if you really have to, because you've got to pay for your course at university or whatever, or it's in your gap year. It's something that you're going to do for the whole of your life because you're proud of the community that you live in. You want people to enjoy that, and it's a proper career for a whole life. Now, to enable that, I think you need to do several things. First of all, you have to have a proper determination across the country that that's what we're going to do. You have to change the whole ethos around serving people in the hospitality industry. You've got to enable the industry to work with government to be able to develop more career paths and patterns. You've got to make sure that tourism is a key part of your industrial strategy, and that all the different bits of it, through from the moment somebody lands in this country to the moment that they leave, are singing in the same way. You've also, I think, you've got to reform the apprenticeship levy so that it really works for small businesses and for the creative industries in general. You've got to bind together all of the creative industries. So we've already talked about music. You could also talk about sport. Lots of people travel for sport. And you've got to make all of that work together if you're really going to change the prosperity of this country as it derives from tourism. And that's why it's so important what I think is happening in the North East. I visited not long ago. I expect I'll be visiting in the next fortnight as well. And I'm very keen to work with those on the ground who want to make sure that tourism becomes an even more significant part of the economy in the North East. Now, can I welcome the Honourable Member for Meriden and Solihull East. I've written down here, welcome him and be nice. Well, actually, to be fair, I am quite fond of him. We sat on the Foreign Affairs Select Committee together in the past, and I think it's a really important point that where it is possible for all of us to drive this economy forward together, there's no partisan advantage. And I'm very happy to work with him, and I know he's got my number and I've got his number in more ways than one, and I very much hope that we can work together. He asked a few specific questions. He asked about a sector-wide plan. As I said earlier, I'm going to be making a speech in the next few weeks about tourism, and I hope I'll lay out some of our ambitions in that area. It may be that we want to do a much more substantial piece of work on our long-term and medium-term ambitions in tourism for the whole of the United Kingdom. And we'll be thinking about that over the next few weeks as well. He asked about the issue of seasonal staffing. It's a very legitimate point, and it goes to some of the issues, of course, that other parts of the economy have had about seasonal workers coming in from other parts of the country. I was really struck when I was talking to the French tourism minister a couple of weeks ago. We actually have a seasonal workers deal with France for British people to go and work in ski resorts in France. Which affects the best part of 100,000 people going out over and working there every year. So it may be that there are, perfectly sensible arrangements that we can come to in relation to that. He asked about what additional support we will provide. Now, this sounds like the Conservative Party asking for additional spending. Now, the problem with additional spending is it normally requires additional taxation. And I think this is one of the problems that the opposition... I've been in opposition in Parliament more than I've been in... My party's been in opposition in more of my years than it's been in government. And if I just had a hint or a suggestion to him, it would be, you can't ask for one without willing the other. And I think if the Leader of the Opposition made a fatal flaw last week in her questions to the Prime Minister, it was in not recognising that if you're going to ask for more money to be spent, you've also got to will the ends and the means. Now, of course, I fully understand the problems that face the visitor and hospitality sector. It is tough running a pub or a restaurant. It has been for many years. The margins are extremely narrow. I note that the member for Cheltenham said that we had slashed, I don't know whether you used the word slashed, cut, the business rate relief from 70% to 40%. You could say that we took it from 0 to 40% because it wasn't guaranteed beyond the end of this year. Now, I want us to be, and we've made it permanent, which is a good thing. of course, I fully understand the problems that this sector faces, but actually some of them are ones about long-term stability and sustainability, about trying to make sure that they have the staff that they need, and I think that goes to some of the points that I've already made, and I hope that the North East is going to be essential in developing that for the whole of the United Kingdom, perhaps in association with other countries around the world. But you also actually need an NHS that functions, buses that turn up on times, a railway system that works, local authorities that mend the roads. I mean, you need a planning system that actually works and is properly resourced. So the whole of the public sector needs to function in order for the private sector to be able to function. And that's why I'm proud of the budget that we brought forward. And I think in the medium and in the long term, it will help us secure our economic future. But the final point I'd make, Sir Roger, is that I believe that tourism, as I think my honourable friend for Hexham and all the members in the committee this afternoon agree, I think that tourism is an essential part of our economic future. It's the fourth largest industry in the world. We have, over recent years, lost share in that. Even if we were to continue losing share, we could still grow that within the United Kingdom, and that is absolutely my determination. But it cannot just be based on bringing more and more people to London. I'd like more people to come to London, but it cannot just be based on that. It has to be based on people understanding the full panoply of what we have to offer across the whole of the United Kingdom. And sometimes that will be based on the other art forms, like being able to see where films were made or TV series were made or where musicians are from. I note that Framlingham Castle is now apparently more famous for Ed Sheeran's song The Castle on the Hill than it is for Queen Mary discovering that she was about to be Queen, which was historically what it sold itself on in the past. So going right back to the point made at the very beginning by my honourable friend for Hexham, it's not just the legacy of the past that we need to celebrate in our tourism, it's what Britain is today that we need to celebrate. And that's the best way to secure a long-term and secure economic future for our tourism industry in Northumberland and across the whole of the United Kingdom.
As the chairman, I'm not, of course, allowed to participate in the debate, but as he comes from the land of song, the Minister might like to know that Brenda lives in Thanet and is the chairman of the Thanet Male Voice Choir. Joe Morris to wind up the debate.
Thank you, Sir Roger, and thank you to the Minister and for every member who contributed to a very good and very enlightening debate. Just to pick up something from my honourable friend from Killingworth, I should point out that I did grow up in Hexham, that I'm very proud to grow up in Hexham, and while I do support Sunderland, as I said to many of my constituents during the general election, if I can grow up in the North East, support Sunderland during the 15 and 19-point seasons, I think I can go down to Parliament and advocate for us quite strongly.
Trying Welsh and liking rugby at the moment.
It certainly teaches resilience. If there's one thing supporting an underwhelming sports team does. As the Minister mentioned music, I should also mention Larry O'Donnell, one of my constituency members, who is a bassoonist in the North East and who has often spoken to me about the good work that he does and that his orchestra does in providing access to music, and I should celebrate that. I would just, as I wind up and thank everyone for their contributions, I should just bring in a few more points that I would just quickly like to make. That we need to make sure tourism is sustainable. You're absolutely right. We need to make sure that those roads are intact, the buses are turning up on time, the trains are turning up on time, and that we need to bring the local communities with us. I should also very briefly turn to the landscapes of my constituency. I've been privileged in the past weeks, months, year, from being selected as a candidate to engage with the farming community and the work that they've done to diversify, bringing holiday cottages onto their sites. And I just want to very briefly pay tribute to them as custodians of Northumberland's landscape. They are fundamental to a lot of what we offer in Northumberland, and it wouldn't be right to talk about tourism without talking about the great work being done by the farming community. I should also thank English Heritage for welcoming me to Belsay Hall a few weeks ago. I should say that it was it remains my grandmother's favourite day out. It was her birthday on Friday. So I've got her mention in Hansard that I promised. And ultimately, just to thank everyone for taking part in the debate, that as the Minister said, we need to grow tourism, but we need to make sure that we grow it outside of London and ensure that when we're getting people coming from Chicago, New York, to LA, to Tokyo come in, that they consider coming to Hexham Spook Night, perhaps when they're attending a Newcastle United home game or a Sunderland home game, in fact. And I look forward to welcoming the Minister at some point to one of the many festivals and events in my constituency. Thank you very much.
The question is that the House has considered increasing tourism in Northumberland. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Ayes have it. Order, order.